Well, here we are, another episode of Pastor Plus, everybody. I'm sitting here with my friend, Pastor Roger Russell. What's up, bro?
Man, what's up, bro, man? It's good to be with you, Bishop, man.
Man, this has been a blessing, man. We go back a long way.
Hey, a long way.
Tell everybody, man, what you've been up to. What's going on with you?
Man, I have been repurposing myself. Man, thinking about where we are, and just as place in the pandemic, ministry, amount of years of in pastoring and ministry as a whole, taking on a new skin, man. I think this is what this culture is teaching us and training us, man. And I'm trying my best to shed an old skin and put on a new one.
Most definitely, man. It's been kind of interesting to watch how these transitions have taken place, man, due to COVID and even pre-COVID, man. Just to watch how the culture of church attendance and things like that has shifted. Yes, I think that's a good lead in to our conversation today, man. It's really been on my heart to kind of talk through this whole idea of the future of pastoring. Man. So let's jump in, man.
Let's dive right in, though. We got a lot to say.
Oh, my gosh, man. The next 5-10 years of pastoring, let's kind of give me your overview. Where do you see pastoring heading?
I see pastoring, man, heading into a new, I guess a familiar direction, yet new direction at the same time. Of course, pastoring is always the God-given work to a man and woman of God who shepherd people, right? Yeah. That is the basis. It is the idea of understanding that we have a responsibility to the great shepherd as we under shepherd God and under the shepherd do the work for God's people. Be servant leaders, right? Mm-hmm. However, I think what we're starting to see is that pastoring is taking on it's going to have to take on a bivocational ideology, right? Because what we're seeing, I think what we're going to see the trend in church is that churches are going to be smaller physically, but they're going to be larger in relation to the culture. I'm using this idea. My mindset is we're going to have 3 churches in one location.
Look at that.
Prior to these past 5 years, we used to brag about 1 church in 3 locations, by geographical placement. But I think we're going to have 3 churches in one location, meaning you're going to have a physical church, you're going to have a virtual church, and then on top of it, you're going to have just followers, those who know you from abroad, across the state, nation, and globally, who are going to be interested in Zion Christian or Stone River Church or Pastor Russell and Bishop Johnson, who said, hey, man, these men of God are preaching good word, and I want to sow into that. But they may not be a physical member, so it's going to shape what membership of church looks like. But when I talk about the bivocational piece, pastors, I think as churches become smaller physical, tithing is changing in the culture of church. Wow. So when people are tithing or sowing seeds or whatever that may be, that's what we related in our conversations of how we give to ministries or nonprofits, we're going to see a lesser, I think, and church is going to have some ingenuity about how they create revenue streams in order to supply full-time pastoring. And maybe that's even going to change, Bishop.
You make a key and interesting point. You said that supply full-time pastoring. Yeah. Now, I thought about something the other day. You had the privilege of meeting my father, one of the best men I knew.
What you say?
The late great Bishop T.P. Johnson.
T.P., sir. Yes, sir. Mighty man of God.
Man, I was thinking about the other day, Raj, man, what if my dad was alive today and had to endure this season, knowing where his mind frame was, knowing where he was as a pastor? Yes, sir. I think he would really struggle in this season.
Bishop, man, as we think about TP, man, I mean, first of all, I was honored always when you introduced me to him, man. He became our spiritual father, and that's how he took all of us in that you introduced as friends and sons who became sons of him, man. So I've been honored and blessed to have him in my life, man. So I want to tell you, first of all, thank you publicly for sharing him with us.
Bless you, man.
But then on top of that, bro, I come from a very conservative church background as it relates to, if I could be honest, I'm always getting in some form of trouble. Let me just go ahead and dive in. I come from a very conservative church background, Primitive Baptist. And so we have, in my experience, when I was young pastoring, I'm nearing 20 years, and we were kind of talking offline of pastoring. But when I came in, most of the guys are already double and some triple my age. And so what I'm seeing, man, in our reformation is that what I'm seeing is what I call the digital divide. And that digital divide, man, is cutting those old servant leaders off who doesn't have either the formal training or the experience training to be able to navigate ministry in this new technological age.
Wow.
And so, man, you're seeing pastors quit. I mean, literally resigning, retiring. But also, Pastor, I think it's also a God move. I think God is shifting the generals. So, I mean, that's a wide statement, and that's a lot to get unpacked. But I think it's also a God move. I think God is changing what church is going to be like going forward. And every so often, if you're sensitive to the Spirit and you understand church history, it happens. It just happens in different ways in different ages. And I think this digital divide is causing us to meet a new generation, but an old general can't reach.
Got you. If this is the new norm, so to speak,
yes, sir.
How do you think this generation of pastors should adjust?
I think, Bishop, is some of the things that you are doing and that you're helping to supply for pastors and leaders is the maybe not the training that we may go to school in a sense to get a sense we call it the formal training, but that experience training, putting them in front of the products and the mechanics and the machines to teach them how to use a podcast machine, how to use cameras, how to do the setups, what does that look like, the necessary tools, and then giving them a look. The social media platform, we all know when social media came out really about 10 years ago, I'm that generation that didn't know, that lived right before it and then came into it in ministry, and then young guys came in and used and created churches, and they was up and popping.
Yeah.
But some of these older gentlemen don't have the experience. They were beyond even computers, right?
Wow.
And so they're making an adjustment. But the thing that you're doing with the Pastor Plus 5, or Plus rather, in being able to say, hey, these are the necessary tools and strengths and skill sets that you have to learn in order to be able to minister to this culture and this community of people. This millennial group, they're going to go to church, not always physically. We know attendance changed over the last 5 years. Most people go to church 2 Sundays a month. Most people go to church 2 Sundays a month. That's what a Pew survey shares with us, 2 Sundays a month. And I think now, having almost a year or so in COVID and social distancing, it's going to go to 1 or maybe 2, but they're going to choose one going to be physical, one be virtual.
Wow.
So, or 3 virtual, or 2 and 2. They're going to divide how they do it for a lot of things. I think lifestyle and time, but pastors got to learn these skill sets that you are offering in order to be able to meet the mandate for ministry in this age.
I was thinking about, when you made mention of that, my Pastor Plus concept. I wrote a book entitled Pastor Plus, and the subtitle is Finding Fulfillment Beyond the Pulpit.
Wow.
I thought about Jeremiah, who prophesied for 70 years, man. Not one single convert. You know what I'm saying?
I've been hurt.
Like he was in purpose, but he was miserable.
Right.
And I think about so many pastors, man, who are in purpose that said yes to the call, but just miserable, man.
Right.
Wow. And then at the end of my dad's ministry, those last 2 years or so, he was miserable.
Wow.
But he had nothing else.
Right.
And how many pastors are right now saying yes to the call, but miserable?
Man.
Like there's a level of there's something unfulfilled in their life, but they get up and preach every week. And then the pulpit becomes a therapy. You see what I'm saying? Because the only thing holding me together is I get to preach.
Yeah.
But when I go home, I'm crying. I'm miserable. So if we look at that and say, there's so many pastors, man, the pulpit then becomes somewhat of a bondage.
Yeah.
Because you've not leveraged your life with any other skills.
It's a prison. It becomes a prison.
That's where I see there used to be a time where the rule was go to seminary, you preach, but nobody taught us to do anything else.
Yeah. Man, let me jump in that, Doc. Pastor, you dropping some major nuggets in this, man, because I think you're right. The old landmark and the model was you're called, go get some formal training, seminary, and we all know, and I've learned, I've been to seminary, it's not for everybody. Seminary is not for everybody. I think that's one thing we need to say, is because sometimes your context, cultural and ministry context is not necessary. And I've learned, and if I will be honest with you, the context sometimes where I was or where I am was not ready for the seminary developed type preacher.
Wow.
And sometimes you can elevate you above the relationship of the sheep.
Makes sense.
And it can become a albatross between you and them and create an obstacle, because what you're teaching is such high thought hyperbole that they can grasp, because sometimes the culture is not formally trained themselves as a church, and that's difficulty. But I think also what you're saying is when you talk about this old model seminary training, and not getting other skill sets around it.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
That is an issue, man, that I think most pastors have struggled with over the last 15, 20 years, because we just been pastors. And I'm not saying that to lowballers or to demean the role of pastor, because I think we ought to have a high view of pastoral work.
Most definitely.
But however, if you are just pastoring, sometimes as the culture changes, technological age came upon, and skill sets, and being a social Christian, right? As a pastor, man, to get out on social media, I mean, you got to have an opinion on something other than the scripture. Right? You got to be able to talk, you know what I mean, about things in general of life, and or other revenue streams, right? We know most churches can't supply full-time pastoring. However, if a pastor have a skill set, and we call it bivocational ministry, even though we act like it's not still full-time pastor. You're still full-time pastor with less time.
Exactly.
But the bivocational work, the ability to do other things, whether that's leadership trainings or whether that's being an author and, going out and doing, sharing your book, sharing your Christian or business opinion, whatever those things may be, pastors in this culture have to have more than access to a pulpit.
Because, the more, when I think about Jesus and all the men that he said, follow me.
What you say?
They all came from the marketplace.
From the marketplace. That's been, have mercy, Rev.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
He used Peter's boat to preach.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
He was often seen using the environments and contexts that they were accustomed to being in.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because we're going to lead people who are from the marketplace. Yes, so we can't just be the pulpiteers. We have to learn how to speak their language and kind of find that gray area. I talk about that in the book, the place where ministry and marketplace meet.
Yes, sir. Oh, man. Bishop, it's like you've been in my head and my heart for, I guess, in this conversation, man. I've been sharing with my friends and brothers who, we all talk quite often. And I've been sharing, man, Doc, that is the new recipe for success for pastors, is that they have to, the marketplace and the ministry have to overlap each other.
Yeah.
Whether that's small business development, that you may create a small business as an entrepreneur, because really ministry, when you talk about pastoring and you say vision, right? In the business world, we just talk about business plan.
Yes.
It's the same ideas. It's just using them in two different spaces. But now a pastor or a leader has to be able to make those two worlds overlap each other in harmony, right? You can't have an illicit business and then you pastoring, but you got to have they got to have some form of harmony, right? And Pastor, man, I think you're right, because when you start thinking about even our congregations and people who are our membership who are in the marketplace, who are working, who have where they earn their monies or earn their salary, whether that is earned income, passive income, or portfolio income, whatever that looks like, we have to be able to take those minds who are in marketplace and use them in ministry.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the great hindrances is the great bonus is pastor got to have marketplace and ministry overlap. But the great hindrance that we have not done so well in churches, and then I say that in traditional churches, is that we have not used those young minds in our ministries. We have to make the table of leadership evolve. When you have someone who is 27, but they are the chief financial officer of a Fortune 500 company, but they can only be a greeter in your church, that is awful.
Wow.
Because of their tenure. We got to use their minds who are in the marketplace to move ministry, and in particular the black church, forward. We are, honestly, Pastor, we are about 20, 25 years behind our counterparts when we start thinking about what leadership look like, how to utilize persons who have great skill sets and mindsets in the marketplace development, and we can get them to the table and extend the table, because I think we got to have an inclusive table versus an exclusive table. We're struggling with that in the black church, because we say you got to be here long enough, you got to be in the right family, you got to give the right tithes, you got to give all these things, these prerequisite ideas. But if that gifted young person or person who's in the marketplace has a skill set that the church can utilize to make it forward with the pastor who's developing a ministry and marketplace overlap, man, great things can happen.
You know, the word redemption is a marketplace term. It means to buy back.
To buy back.
God was concerned. We better quit, man, before you can't get two preachers on a mic.
Yes, sir.
But God was concerned,
yes, sir,
about this meeting between marketplace and ministry. You know, he used Matthew, who was Levi, tax collector. You know what I'm saying? Luke was a doctor, a physician. I mean, we can go on and on. Paul mended tents. Yes, Jesus had a job. He was a carpenter. Yes, you see, and so this idea that God can leverage influence in both places is something we definitely have to tap into.
Yes, sir.
So, like you said earlier, I don't want to discredit the role of pastor. Right. What I'm saying is be pastor plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So it is possible to move these two together.
Yes, sir.
And so what I've decided is I want to die empty.
Whew, Paul said it. Grab you on me.
You know what I'm saying? I don't want nothing left, man.
Yes, sir.
When I lay down, I don't want to say I preached and that's it. No, I preached, but I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes, sir.
I preached and I pastored, but I train business leaders.
Yes, sir.
I preached and I pastored, but I mentor young men. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
That's all that's in me. I didn't put it there. He did.
Yes, sir.
So talk to a pastor, man. What is it? How can that pastor say, okay, because I struggled with confidence of saying, because I felt guilty.
Yeah.
That there was going to be a part of my life that God put resonant in me that I would charge for when I've given all of this in service for so many years for free.
Yeah, man, that is the great hurdle, I think, for those of us who are, like you said, pastor and entrepreneur spirits. It's that challenge of being able to say, I can, and I have worth and value in the market space. I struggled with it myself. Mm-hmm. I was, and if you allow me to be honest and transparent, there were some times that because I was traveling preaching and I was engaged in that world very regularly, honestly, 30, 45, 40 weeks a year, I was gone on the road. You and I, you know that we talk quite often.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a great tenured history of this. And being gone, it was people of my own church culture who said I was charging. And it injured me because then I understood the text when it says, a prophet can't do much in his own hometown. I couldn't do much in my own area with my own constituents and church family or fellowship because they saw me as a charge. I was receiving funds. But once you get to a certain perspective in ministry, you and I know that's some itinerary issues you got to have. You got to start, they start requesting what is your stipend and what are the requests for your lodging? And they ask you what are your requests. And beyond when I was first started, I didn't know what they were, asking me of. I was saying, just give me some orange juice and let me preach. But when you get more in the culture and you get more in the climate, that is a charge to come from those things. And they were teaching me that. And I felt guilty with just like you. And the issue I think our pastor has to get to the point of recognizing that he is more. And he can be more than just a preacher. And that does not mean it is separating him from the ministry. It's more. God has gifted him or her to do some great things. And just like in any other place, we live in America. We are in a capitalistic society. It's called supply and demand.
Yes.
Business is supply and demand.
Yes.
There's a demand for this. I have the ability to supply it, and I'm going to do it at this fixed cost. Right. And the other side is, we have to live. Pastors have houses and mortgages and children and wives and husbands and cardinals and all these things. And sometimes the salary of the church does not allow him to live the lifestyle.
Most of the time.
I was trying to be kind. Good Bishop, I was trying to be kind. It doesn't allow the pastoral family to live the way our own members live. Let's think about it. Most churches have pastor aides. Why is that? Because he can't meet the need of the pastor, so he got to come back to church and say, "Pastor, church, I need this to survive." No.
Wow. Wow.
But a pastor of 5 who can recognize he has skill sets that he can leverage in the marketplace and do some great things to benefit himself, his family, or herself and her family. That is what I tell every pastor, man. Go forward, Doc. You have dreams and visions beyond the pulpit.
Yes.
Seek it out, man. Seek it out.
And it's a level of bondage that pastors walk in when you become dependent on that pulpit.
Have mercy.
Right? And so I've made it one of my goals is my business called The Greatness Coach. Yeah. My consulting mentoring business is to replace my salary at the church.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Because there's a level of freedom there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I'm well on my way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I pastor now with a peace of mind, with a certain level of consciousness that says, if they fired me tomorrow, I'm good.
Yes, sir.
Not only that, I have a master's degree.
Yeah.
I have a bachelor's degree.
Have mercy.
I've leveraged my life with other skill sets.
Have mercy.
So, and it's probably, like you said, the untraditional way, but I'm not pastoring with fear.
Have mercy.
During this COVID situation, and I'm not grandstanding. I don't have the same fears that most pastors have. Right. It's just simply because I've tapped into my plus.
Yeah. Yeah. You prepared yourself.
Yeah. And moving into the future of pastoring, there's a pastor that may be watching this saying, man, I don't even know where to begin. What other markets would even want what I have? Yeah. Some pastors haven't even put it together. Yeah. So I want to spend the next couple of minutes just kind of sharing what transferable skills a pastor that has pastored faithfully and well, what transferable skills would look appealing to the marketplace?
Man, it's interesting you said. Let me get real churchy for 1 second. I think sometimes we misunderstand the scripture when Jesus says, "Occupy till I come." Mm-hmm. And in whether you're a pastor or a saint of God, we have to have influence in every area of the world: politics, business, education, church, community activism, whatever sphere exists in this space that we live in. A believer ought to be in it and activating their skill sets to lead it.
Yes.
Right. And as we do that, occupy till we come. Now the Christian thought and the imminency of Christ is in all spaces. Right. And you're changing culture. You're changing atmosphere. We like to use that. Your spirit in Christ, your Christianity, changing atmosphere. but where are you? What atmosphere are you in? Right. It's the question. And so as a pastor who is trying to get into other spheres of living and in spaces of existence, the transferable things are really amazing. You'll come to realize you're a lot further ahead than you really realize.
Yes.
And because sometimes people have education or pigskin/diplomas, but they don't have the experience. I was just sharing with a brother last night who has a master's and but has been pastoring for quite a few years. And I said, where's your resume? I said, Doc, start putting down the skills that you have. You got to do an inventory of yourself. Yes. I said, when I went back into the marketplace and started working, one of the things that tripped me out, Bishop, is I got to the marketplace and realized how simple it was working in the marketplace versus pastoring the church. I almost left church, Bishop, because it was so much easier in the marketplace.
Yes.
As the pastor, I'm pastoring live. I'm preaching. I'm teaching. I'm counseling. I'm developing curriculum. I'm doing training. I'm doing all of these things. And sometimes then you're giving training to leaders, and then you're monitoring. And I got to the marketplace and I was doing one thing. It shocked me.
And people had to be there.
That's exactly what I told a brother. I said, bro, in church it was voluntary. volunteerism. But at the workplace, the marketplace, they were paid to do this. All I just said, I was pointing. I was pointing. Jesus told John, look, you're going to point, and they're going to come. And I said, Lord have mercy. It was easy because I learned that my leadership skills, my training, and my ability to motivate people. A lot of times pastoring and vision in the marketplace looks like motivating teams, teaching skill sets and develop them in the marketplace of how to do a certain task, right? One of the things for me, I am a person who just, I automatically see the flaw. I don't know why God created me that way. I just see the flaw. And then not so much to point it out, but how do I correct it? That's just how my mind works. So what has worked for me is I've engaged in logistics.
Wow.
Right? I became a Lean and Sigma 6 specialist, right? And I learned it just because I was just interested. Okay, let me try this.
Yeah.
But you can get a job to make $100,000. Right? Just like that.
Just like that.
Just by noticing flaws.
Wow.
Right? So process and procedure.
And then you're able to put on your resume all the years of experience you've done it as a pastor.
As a pastor. But it also says you're a people person. Right? In the marketplace, the great skill set now, they need leaders who know how to deal with people. You may know how to add 2 + 2, but do you know how to deal with the people?
Yes.
And that's the great divide. So it's one thing to be educated. It's another thing to be able to leverage your skill sets and what we call gifts in God in the marketplace that makes it easy. And you and I both know, Bishop, when the Lord give it to you, it's easy.
It's easy.
It ain't even like work.
And we don't even know how valuable it is because it was a gift from God. Right. I was on a plane talking to a CEO of a major company. Well, several of them, and they're sitting there. Now I'm on the plane because I'm exposed to and we'll talk about exposure in a minute, but I'm exposed to a new environment, right? So I'm listening, not knowing and understanding that as a pastor, I have a unique experience and insight that they don't have.
Right.
And so they're just talking and they're like, so Chris, tell us, what are some things you do with your team? And I said, well, one of the things I like what Michael Hyatt talks about, the leadership strategy of Jesus when it deals with relationships, right? I told him Jesus led himself. He confided in 3. He trained 12. He mobilized 70, and he taught the multitudes.
Yes,
man, you would have thought. Oh my God. Oh, what, man, say that one more time. They're taking notes, writing it down.
Yes, sir. They want what you got.
You got to come and say that to my team. You got to teach that relationship circle thing with my team. And I'm thinking to myself, I just taught this our leadership training last week for free.
For free.
and I would tell you, man.
Yes, sir.
I'm not even going to tell you what they paid me to come speak for 45 minutes about leadership circles.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yes, sir. Look, man, I worked for a company, man, that they brought in I won't share the company. I worked for the company that brought in another company who did leadership training. This company they ended up doing 300 trainings a year. I was interested because, look, I'm in the room, I'm doing my job in the marketplace, but I'm really looking at what they do in training because I'm saying, this stuff is simple and it's almost, you almost belittling me with what you're talking about. That's really what I was thinking, because my mind, I'm cognitively listening and I'm saying, this is so simple. I don't know, where do they get this? We don't even, the church, talk about greater principal strategies than this. And this is a Fortune 500 company I'm involved in.
Yes.
Healthcare. And y'all making billions of dollars. Y'all in Washington, D.C., meeting with the Senate right now as we speak. And this is the training y'all giving for leadership. I was almost embarrassed for them, but I got intrigued. So I asked the guys, hey, I'm going to call the name and hold off. I went up to them and said, hey, tell me what y'all do. And told me their company name. I looked it up when I got back to my desk. 300 trainings a year. Brother, they were charging for initial, just to come and put a plan together of leadership, $10,000.
Wow.
That's not doing the training.
Wow.
Just a plan and then you teach it.
Wow.
So let's just say 300 times 10,000 at the least of them. That's $3 million.
Wow. Wow.
Come on, man. Just to talk about the stuff that Jesus told us how to live.
The most profound leader to ever walk the face of this earth.
Have mercy.
And we're teaching leadership principles that he gave us. Yeah. And I really feel this so much for pastors, man, because we don't understand our value.
Right.
We don't understand what our experiences have taught us. Yeah. You know, one of the guys there asked me, he said, let me ask you this. He said, I lead a team every week of about, under me personally, of about 150. He said, let me ask you this. What's different between your leadership and mine? He said, I've always wondered that. I said, yours is transactional, mine is transformational.
Have mercy. Have mercy.
Your people come because you pay them.
Yeah.
I said, most of mine, I said, now, it takes a different skill set to motivate, inspire, and encourage people who do it for free.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So you got to make them believe that there's something more meaningful
that's about to happen
in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they have to believe in a bigger cause, a bigger purpose, and they have to know that their life has value doing it.
Right.
And I said, that's transformational.
Have mercy.
Jesus was the most transformational leader there was, right? And so this is what they're looking at me like, man, that is, wow. I said, so what you have to do is, even in your job, it has to be more than just the check. You have to get them to say, if I'm in real estate, don't look at it as I just help somebody get a house. No, I just changed someone's life. I created a home and an environment of safety. You see what I'm saying?
The depth.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to get them to the beyond the surface, into the depth of their meaning, right? I think that's such a powerful statement, Bishop, talk about transformational versus transactional. And sadly, that's what oftentimes, even sometimes in church ministry in our lives, that we just talk about what you can do for me and what I can get from you, right? Or what I can give in services. So it becomes transactional. Not a bad idea,
right?
But when you couple it with the transformational perspective, man, it takes it to a whole new level. A pastor can do business, because I have a small business. So I do small business. I'm not just talking to them about what I'm going in to do. I'm also talking, they start telling me about their life.
Yeah.
I'm doing a consultation. I do a free quote. I go in and look at their home and do some things. And then they start talking to me about their life. And then they say, I got to go with you. Because I'm spending time talking about to a father.
It's transformational.
Transformational. I came initially for a transaction.
Wow.
I'm in there for a transaction, but while I'm in there working the transaction, I start looking. They start telling me about their life, and I spend time with them and share with them. I finished the quote 45 minutes ago, but I'm talking about him being a father, him being a husband, her.
Man, look at that.
How they look, and then they start saying, "Man, we got to go with you. We don't even care the price anymore."
Wow. And you know that, along with so many other things, is one of the things that's in my heart for pastors in this season, which is one of the reasons why God put it in my heart this June to come in with a group of pastors, however many pastors who feel like there's something missing. Yeah. You know, I need to be doing something else. I need to create some revenue for me and my family, and other streams need to start flowing in.
Right.
I want to bring a group of pastors together, man, and do a Pastor Plus retreat. Man, I'm bringing in publicists. I'm bringing in professional video people. I'm bringing in social media experts. I'm bringing in some people that when you leave there, you'll have some value to know you can leverage other markets as an influencer.
Yeah.
Because leadership is influence.
It's influence, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So how do you think that would benefit any pastor to be in a setting where you get exposed? It was eye-opener to me the first time I was exposed to that different environment. This is not a church conference. Yeah. This is not your typical pastor. No, we're bringing in professionals, and we're going to help pull that plus side of you out.
Yeah. Bishop, I will say this, man. I think, first of all, that is a tool and a opportunity that pastors or any leader who is leading a congregation can utilize. One of the things I think, so we always got to speak the language of the church in order to bait them in, I'm a city boy, so I never went fishing as a young boy. I ran from pit bulls and Rockwellers, so I didn't know fishing and all these things. But I learned as I've been in the borough that in order to catch a certain fish, you need a certain type of bait. Right?
Yes.
And so let's bait these pastors in. As you're talking about as a pastor, you need some skill sets if you're going to minister and you still feel the call and the burn for ministry be in this digital divide to this next generation. Mm-hmm. We have to speak the language and be able to communicate with this next generation with where they are. And so if you're going to do this work, you're going to have to look the part. You got to learn how to do the part. Mm-hmm. And so it's presentation and performance. So this, I believe what you're doing, Pastor Plus, is learning how to present yourself in the market that people say, hey, that's somebody I want to work with. Somebody who can motivate me, somebody who can mentor me and develop me to be all that I can be in God and in my life, in God in the sense of the spirituality, but also my world, my social living. And so at the Pastor Plus, if you are a leader, you're a pastor who's saying, I got to burn. I still got the desire to do ministry. I still feel like God's hand is upon me to help, to shape, and to help transform people's lives to the image of Christ. It's Imago Day. Let me just throw a little out there. Use my ABC seminary concept. It's Imago Day. If I'm going to be the image of, help them become the image of God, I also got to look the part. I got to learn to operate in the spaces that they are in. And as I learn those things, I can be a better value to God, to my culture, and to my family as I earn monies to be able to be a blessing to my family. The text teaches us, Moses not the oxen to go out and trade out the field. He got to eat, you know what I mean? So as you go work in the marketplace, as you develop yourself to be marketable, go knowing that you're going to come back prepared to continue the work of ministry and to be valuable in the market space.
You said a key word several times, go.
Yeah.
And that is our commission.
Yeah.
Go. And right now, that's where the fish are biting.
Man, what you say?
The fish, we in the church, we've been fishing in this one pond for so long.
Have mercy, bro.
But now we've got to expand the area that we're fishing in. We've got to move from the pond to the lake, from the lake to the ocean, to the sea, right? And so now that we do that, well, in order to do that, you got to get a bigger net.
Have mercy. I'm going to drop this on you, Bishop. I was talking to some guys a couple of years ago, and we were talking about going into bigger spaces, right? And we talked earlier about fear and sometimes our own understanding of who we are that limits us to go into these marketplaces or go into another arena of thought or with a different set of people. And I was sharing with a brother, and the brother said, we were talking about going and go, as you use that word go, and that just resonated in my spirit when you said this. Like electricity hit me. But man, this brother said to me, and I knew then that this is what pastors struggle with. He said, Russ, why do I need to go into a bigger place when I'm already a shark where I am? And I said, I looked at him, I said, it's great to be a shark, but the problem is you're in a creek. Sharks ain't never supposed to be in creeks. You're displaced. And so when you start talking about, when you understand who you are and you understand this commission of going, sometimes you got to become uncomfortable going into some new spaces. And as you talked about those bodies of waters, moving from that creek to a stream, to a river, to a lake, to a sea, to an ocean, you have to be uncomfortable. But there's no point to be a great white shark in a creek.
My God.
You're going to die. Sharks grow because they feed. But once you're in a space that no longer can feed you, you die.
That's good, Reverend.
You die, Reverend. And so you got to ask yourself, self-identify, but are you in the right space? And that's what we're asking in this generation of ministry and pastoring with the digital divide and with this Pastor Plus that you're doing. Where you are, can you survive?
Man, we can do this all day.
I'm feeling the ghost, Reverend. I'm getting in trouble.
Man, it's been a pleasure, man. Yes, thank you so much, man. I feel like we got to come back and do another episode together, man.
Bishop, if you have me, man, we can do this all day long. I've been looking for my podcast partner.
Well, look, man, everybody, this has been Pastor Roger Russell on the Pastor Plus podcast. And, man, tell everybody how they can find you.
Hey, man, you can find me on all the virtual spaces of social media, man. Facebook. You can find me on Instagram at Stone River Church, or you can find me at Heart of Matter Ministries on on the Facebook as well. That's what we do. We have podcasts. We have a lot of things that come out. I have an internet radio station that's coming out pretty soon, so look forward to that. It's not just going to be gospel. It's going to be hip hop, R&B. It's going to be podcast conversation, man. So I'm looking forward. And Bishop, you definitely got to be on there.
I'm in, so man.
We can do this great work, man. I appreciate being with you, Bishop, and man, I am inspired by your vision and dream of Pastor Plus. Let's go get this thing.
Man,
Pastor.
Bless you so much, man. Thank you so much for being on. And we're going to put all of those links in the description of this video and this podcast and this episode. So everybody stay tuned for Pastor Plus, the retreat. And I'm excited about what God is doing. Until next time, this has been Bishop Chris Johnson and Pastor Roger Russell. God bless you.